Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Or as the Dutchies say, Goedemorgen or something. And there's Joe saying hello.
Hello, Joe.
And there's Nellie. Hello, Nellie.
Of course.
And we are looking.
Yolanda.
Yolanda. The Dutchies are winning the race again.
Not for long today, I think. Not for long.
Yeah, why? They're going somewhere else?
No, because on Saturdays, uh, a lot of the people all over the world join. So.
Yeah, you just never know.
Mhm.
And so, anyway,
What are we doing today, Samiji?
what are we doing today? We are doing
Section 4, I think.
we are doing types of concentration. Section 4, Sutras 17 and 18. So there we go. Okay?
Okay. I am ready for it.
You're ready. Alrighty. Let me slide that over there. And I'll take this back out of here. And I will put up. Here we go. Get ready, Ma.
Am I in or out?
What do you mean? Are you in or out?
On the broadcast, meaning is my picture's face showing?
Your picture's there. Why you want more visibility? There you go.
I don't know.
Your whole face is showing. Give
Hello,
us.
everyone.
There you go. All right.
Enjoy to be here on a lovely sunny day. It's always a sunny day, but there's no clouds.
There we are. And so why don't I put, there's Raj.
Hello.
Hello. With a colon D.
I think that is a big smiley face, like that. When you smile so beautifully for us, Swamiji, that's the kind of smile that is. Like that. Yes.
There's a Hari Om.
That's the proper one.
That's a proper Hari Om.
And that says Ma.
And that says wave, 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 Ma.
Oh, wave. Hi, Joe.
We had a Joe here, but he left.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, alrighty. So
that's his loss.
So here we are. Is that big enough? I can't make it any bigger. So, as you all know, what we usually do is chat.
Also, the meditation room is still on.
Well,
we do two things at the same time: satsang and meditating.
Oh yeah, that's because we have that really good Wi-Fi now.
Yeah.
But you can start talking about this, and I will go turn that off.
Okay, I'll just start reading this, Simonji, because these are superb words that are worth reading.
All righty, I'll be right back.
Okay. So, Yoga Sutras 1.17-1.18, types of concentration. Stages: building upon practice, abhyasa and non-attachment, which we talked about. Hi, Ineke. I don't know how to put up your thing. That's Swamiji's thing, but he'll be right back. Put up your message that I just saw pop up. Building upon practice, abhyasa, and non-attachment, vairagya, the meditator systematically moves inward through 4 levels or stages of concentration on an object, and then progresses to the stage of objectless concentration. And I'll bet we'll dive into some of these links later. Discrimination: developing a razor-sharp discrimination from such concentration is the purpose of the 8 rungs of yoga and forms the final tool for introspection.
There you go.
There you go. So it's not that the 8 rungs are a means to itself, it's a tool
Yeah.
to develop a razor sharp discrimination through all those levels and layers. All objects are in one of 4 stages. Virtually all types, styles, methods, or objects of meditations are included in one of these 4 stages, levels, or categories. The specific objects within those 4 stages are discussed in later sutras.
And there's an Inika. Hi, Inika.
I saw the message pop up, but I couldn't change it. I couldn't bring it up, of course.
And there's hi, Gurvinder.
Huh. Feels a long time since I've seen a message from him pop up, but that happens more because I'm in different time zones.
Here's Eileen first saying GG.
Good something.
It's supposed to be good morning, I think.
Yeah, good greetings.
Good morning. Hi, everyone.
Good.
And there's Scott.
And how many kittens, Roho?
Huh?
How many kittens?
5.
5.
That's the end of it?
I hope so,
Okay,
but there might be more.
I see.
It can take hours and hours to get the full litter out.
Yeah, what to do, huh?
Well, the good news, I think I saw that she had a waiting list, so people want to have kittens. That's nice.
She does?
I don't have any names for sure yet.
Nothing sure. Anybody want a cat?
Kitten.
A kitten? Little bitty, brand new, 1 day
They're
old?
so cute. They look very nice.
I won't be ready till New Year's.
Haha. They won't be
ready till New Year's.
grow little.
Oh my. Huh.
Yeah. So
Anyway, carry on, Ma. You're doing great.
stage. So Savitarga is gross. Sorry, that came out wrong. Relates to concentration on any gross objects while still accompanied with other activities of the mind, including meditation on sensory awareness, visualized objects, the gross level of breath, attitudes, syllables of mantra, or streams of conscious thought. Savichara, subtle, relates to subtle objects. After the gross have been left behind, the subtleties of matter, energy, senses in the mind are themselves the objects of meditation, inquiry, and non-attachment. Sananda, bliss, emphasizes the still subtler state of bliss in meditation. In this state, the concentration is free from the gross and subtle impressions that were at the previous levels. And Sasmita, I-ness, focuses on I-ness, which is even subtler, as it relates to the I that is behind or witness to all of the other experiences. Objectless meditation. The 4 stages mentioned above, all have an object to which the attention is directed. Some prajnana. Beyond these 4 is objectless meditation, where all 4 categories of objects have been released from attention. Asamprajnana.
So there you go.
Easy peasy, Samaji.
Easy peasy. If you look at this list here, and this feels not totally satisfying, not totally complete, like I want to know more, I think that's very normal. But I note with some degree of fascination that Patanjali does not go into great intellectual depth trying to give what we would think of as detailed scholarly explanations of these. These are broad categories. And as we integrate the principle of these 4 levels here into our practices of meditation and contemplation, just what we normally are observing, if this hasn't happened for you already, just hang out with it and don't work too hard at it, but remember the 4 levels. And there's gross objects, and you see this is the world in which we live. And when you sit down for meditation, most of the day-to-day thoughts that come to mind, you're remembering that person that you just had a meeting with a little while ago. You're remembering that other friend that you were with and you did this thing. You were remembering having a meal. You were remembering your activities, your to-do list. You're remembering things like that. Well, those are obviously the Savitarka level. Those are gross level of thoughts. And then maybe you start to have some subtler feelings going in there. You have some subtler aspects of vision or light or sound. And so note that Patanjali does not give you a distinct boundary line between Vitarka and Vichara. But by observing this, you get your own idea of this. Ananda, or the bliss level. Why would that be called Ananda or bliss? In this state, the concentration is free from gross and subtle impressions. Now, the samskaras are still there. Remember later on in the sutras, because I know most of you, all of you, I think, have been through this before, you know that samskaras are talked about later, the whole field of karmashe, the whole field of samskaras. And when all of those are not active, when they're all in latent form, what is the overwhelming feeling that is left? Ananda. Feels very blissful, because there is the absence of attractions and aversions. There's the absence of active attachments that would otherwise be troubling us. At the surface level, at the Vitarka level of, so to speak, beginning meditation, a person that's early in meditation and has the noisy mind, the monkey mind, and all of that's going on in here in the conscious mind level, that gradually starts to subside. And when none of the memory traces are coming forward and the lake of mind, of the conscious mind, becomes still, all of those samskaras and wants and wishes and desires and attractions and aversion, they all recede back into latent form. And when that happens, what do we feel? We feel a sense of bliss. It's not self-realization, but it's very nice. It's one of those places where it's very easy to accidentally think, oh, I'm in samadhi now. I finally got samadhi. And what we had was not necessarily, meaning the highest, not necessarily the highest, deepest, most advanced level of samadhi, but everything has fallen away. There's just nothing coming. It's beyond the Vitarka, it's beyond the swirling lights and memories and sounds, it's beyond everything. It's asam prajnata, and the feeling is Ananda. Now, Ananda still has a me and a feeling. You got to sit with this one. This one's a little bit tough, because it's so tempting to think, well, this is the end, because this blissful feeling is really fantastic. It's so nice to just feel calm and quiet after a stress-filled day. And now I have the ability to actually enjoy the bliss of no troublesome stuff going on in the mind. But it is still the phenomenon that there is an I, there is a me, not much of me left, but there is an I there who is experiencing an experience. Now, the experience is bliss. The experience is not gross impressions going through the mind, and it's not subtle impressions going through the mind field, but it is the impression, subtle as it is, of bliss itself. And so there's an I-ness that is experiencing the bliss. So when we, with non-attachment, drop the feeling of Ananda, when we transcend and go beyond that, then what we find is I-ness itself. Now note here that as we move down these four, it gets harder and harder to talk about. And so when I say that, it's almost, does it not almost begs the question, well, I don't understand what that is. What is that? I want to understand that better. Explain it to me more. Well, it's not that we need more explanation. It's that we are accustomed to being out here in the world of gross objects and a little bit of subtle objects coming forward from the subtle into the gross. But this is where we spend most of our time. So when we talk about these four levels moving inward, it gets harder and harder for this level of our mind to be aware. And of course, as you know, I'm going to turn this back on here. This is another way of describing this same phenomenon, that here is the gross, here is the subtle, and here is the causal. And when all of those thought patterns, the vitarkas and the vicharas, are doing nothing, the gross and subtle thoughts, when they are not coming forward, where are they? They are in the latent form here at the samskara level, this plane of reality called prajna. Vaishvanara Tejasa Prajna and Turiya. Okay? Thoughts, question? Yeah, Yolanda says, what a stream of knowledge. Yeah, it's quite a stream, isn't it? And so this summary here of these four things, is amazingly thorough. It's kind of, as the saying goes, is short and sweet. There's only four levels, and what Ma read above there before, wherever it was, here it is. Virtually all types, styles, methods, or objects of meditation are included in one of these four. And so what you want to do with this is just ponder this yourself as you're sitting there doing your meditation, or when you're just, laying back on your couch and just being quiet and sort of pondering or contemplating or daydreaming. And allow yourself to, from time to time, be aware that, oh, this is a bunch of vitarkas going through my mind. Here's thoughts going through my mind of people and objects and places and things to do, activities. And then you notice some other things sort of swirling around in there, and you realize, oh, wait a minute. This is what Patanjali is talking about with vicharas, because we all already know this. These are not experiences that we've never had. It's just we never knew quite what to do with them, and nobody ever gave them categories for us. So this is the beauty, part of the beauty of what Patanjali is presenting to us in the Yoga Sutras, is a framework, a way to view the experiences in life that we're already touching on, glimpses of this stuff. And then they all fall away. When all fall away, then there is objectless. Let's see what we got down here. What do you think, Ma?
I was thinking that basically when you can observe something, it becomes an object, and by that sort of positioning of that object, it becomes clear that it's not who you are, because there's a distance. It's just, now it's there. It's not me.
Yes.
So with that positioning, so to speak, if I may use that playfully, what is then still observing the I-ness, if you can make I-ness as it were an object to focus on?
It starts to be Purusha. It's this sequence going in. So when we go to Asam Prajnata, the objects that I am witnessing are falling away. And the totality of the instrumentation of buddhi and manas that then employs the indriyas, they're all starting to recede inward. Now remember, here where we are, we're still in the beginnings of the Yoga Sutras, and in a sense, Patanjali is presenting to us the foundation framework. And then as we go into, for example, chapter 2, the first part of chapter 2 talks about how to attenuate the gross level of thought patterns, and then it starts talking about how to deal with the subtler. And then is introduced the karmashaya, the field of the latent samskaras. And then is introduced the 8 rungs. and viveka, and how to discern and set aside who I'm not, which is what you were adding in there. You were talking about where it's going, and that's one of, as you know, this is one of the challenges with Yoga Sutras. It's so thorough.
It's holographic, as you often say.
It's kind of holographic. You can dive in anywhere and get the whole big picture. Yeah. And Yolanda says, "Nice, Mom." Yeah.
So, as if I may call it, the gravity of the self gradually is receding it inward to itself, then sort of the last thing you see along the way until it becomes objectless is that field of I-ness that we normally have as a foundation of the false.
Yeah, there's still an I-ness.
Yeah.
But the attractions and aversions are not gross or subtle levels. They're in late form, and even the bliss has been transcended.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Further, no more. Otherwise, it becomes too intellectual.
Yeah, and that's okay. Critical thinking minds using buddhi are very useful. So thinking about this stuff is useful, but please also remember to just be quiet and don't overly think. It's not only about think. Thinking is very, very good and useful, particularly when it's coupled with practice, or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on here and see what else I did down here. Okay, here is another compatible in this Sutra 17 where these four are introduced. There's Vitarka, there's Vichara, there's Sananda, and there's Sasmita. Vitarka, Vichara, Ananda, Asmita, Rupa, Anugama, Samprajnata. These are the Samprajnata, the lower samadhis. And somewhere in the Sanskrit root of prajnata means that upon which the mind is leaning. So now this is not a perfect metaphor, but it's a little bit like leaning on an elbow. Your mind, the mind likes to lean on something. So what is it leaning on? It's leaning on a prajnata. So it is leaned upon objects. Okay, so and so the meditation that we're doing is accompanied by extraneous stuff going on.
What is extraneous?
External, in addition to. I'm sitting here meditating on my breath, but then there's this whole field of other activity going on, right?
Yeah. Yes, and you learn to do nothing with that. It just let it come and go, so to speak.
Yeah, let it come, do nothing with it. And gradually the Savitarka becomes near Vitarka. Now, Patanjali doesn't mention this here in this sutra. In sutras later, at the end of chapter 1, he uses the word near. I mean, the verb is near. So sa and near. Sa means with, and near means without or beyond or transcending. Yeah, so you can have with vitarkas and you can have without vitarkas. You can have with vicharas. You can have without vicharas. Now, in general, because these things swirl together, but in general, you mostly have vitarka, gross thoughts going on, and then those fall away, and then come waves of subtle thoughts, and then those fall away, and what we're left with is bliss. But there's some overlap. So as you know, when you're in a quiet internal state, or when you're having a dream is a good example. So because in a dream, I may have a Madri in my dream. There she is in her shape and form. And in the dream, here we are sitting in the ashram. And then all of a sudden, here comes moonbeams shining through the room, subtle objects. Yeah. So there can be a mixture of these things. But in a general kind of way, Savitarka means with gross thoughts. Nirvitarka means those are falling away. Savichara starts to come and there's more subtle thoughts. Nirvichara means those are starting to be transcended. and what's left when the vitarkas and the vicharas are in latent form and are not doing anything, then there's the experience of bliss accompanying what we're doing. And then when that falls away or is transcended, then there's asmita or I-ness. And these are the samprajnatas. Now, obviously, this all has to do with attention. I put this in here because this is a sequence that Swami Rama has talked about a lot that's very practical and very down to earth. It's just a simple restatement of the same words we already know. So attention leads to concentration. Concentration leads to meditation, and meditation leads to samadhi. So there's a sequence to it. Now here I'm making a point. It may be difficult to conceptualize samadhi. It may be useful to think of this sutra in the 4 stages in terms of attention or concentration. By thinking in terms of attention, in other words, if we say, let's talk about samadhi, you say, well, I don't know what the hell samadhi is, so how can I have a conversation about it? Well, you do know what attention is, so let's talk about it in terms of attention and keep it simple. But in terms of attention, it's easier to grasp the practicality of these principles. And then the depth of experience can come over time. And here's another way of saying the same. Savitarka relates to concentration on a gross object while still accompanied with other activities of mind.
I think, again, I see the word accompanied, and whenever I see that word accompanied, I remember a really, really, really old satsang in which this point really hit home, that it is totally okay that if you are focusing, that there's still stuff going around. So
Yeah.
it's fun to have that come up from it.
Yeah, it's easy to think that we're supposed to, as we all know this, that how do I get rid of these thoughts going on in my mind? Well, you don't get rid of them. That's why you have vairagya, non-attachment, which we went through in the last session. Yeah. That's why we cultivate non-attachment. So thoughts are going through my mind and I'm simply not disturbed by them. Or I put them in Guru Chakra, but I'm not disturbed by them. They're just coming and going and coming and going.
Nicely said.
Yeah, and so this is just a restatement of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Important to reflect upon the principle of meditation on the subtle elements. Meditation at this stage on the subtle means you're dealing with very building blocks of all objects on which you might meditate. You're focusing not only with objects normally seen to be external, such as the things of the world stored as memories, but also the very instruments such as the senses and mind. Now, initially, this sounds odd. So I can say, well, the object of my meditation, I'm going to show you this to make this point here. I have a pen here. I can say the object of my meditation is on the pen. So I am seeing the pen. If I put the pen down there and I close my mind, I say, okay, in my mind, I am seeing or I'm imagining that I'm seeing the pen. So I'm going to meditate on the pen. Or I'm going to meditate on my breath here. But if I am internally seeing the pen, or if I am feeling the cognitive sense of touch of air coming in and out of my nostrils, guess what? The seeing itself is an object. Hello, Coco Birdie is visiting. Hi there, my little friend Coco Birdie. It's nice to see you out playing. Have a seat. Thank you for coming out. Coco Birdie has been... It's on your head now.
I'm startled because I dropped the spreadsheet. Yeah. Sorry, Birdie.
Coco Birdie has been isolating a little bit, staying off in the corner of his cage and not being too friendly. But it's nice to see you.
It's 8:30.
Oh, he's still eating on the last seed.
I have a lot of birdies in my yard.
Uh-huh. We have a cocoa birdie.
Yeah, these don't sit on my finger.
Sure is nice to see you, Cocoa Birdie, my little friend. My little green friend. Do you know, Cocoa Birdie, that you are my favorite birdie of all the birdies in the birdie world? Yes, it's true. You're the number one birdie. Those big eagles, those are nothing compared to you.
Turn around.
Turn around.
Run around.
Turn around. Turn around. There's Cocoa
He does
Birdie.
look a little bit like an eagle when he goes like.
He's very regal, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
There he is. Wave. I can feel him moving around on my finger. He feels a little restless. There. Have him there. Yes. And so, anyway. Let's go back to this. Here's a little metaphor. When you're driving your car in a rural area, it may seem quiet and peaceful. As you approach a city, there is an ever-increasing activity with more and more people. In the heart
Swamiji, you were still on the pen. And you didn't really finish that part yet, I think.
and I commented, but I didn't. I need to comment it on like 3 times, and it makes the point. If I am seeing the pen, the object that I'm on is the pen, but I'm using the sense, the indriya of seeing. So a subtle meditation is to meditate on seeing itself.
Yes.
If I'm doing awareness of the touch of breath in my nostrils, then instead of being on the breath itself through the vehicle of the cognitive sense of touch, the object of my meditation becomes the cognitive sense of touch itself.
Very beautiful point. Cannot be made enough.
And I know that for our waking state conscious mind that has conversations, that level of our functioning, that's very difficult to understand. You know, how can I meditate on an object that the sense of touch or the sense of seeing or hearing, smelling, tasting, any one of those is itself an object? Sounds very odd.
But that's who I am.
Yeah.
Oops.
And that's the problem. But
I know.
as we gradually, internally, quietly, patiently observe pens going by and people going by and breathing going on, as we do those things, gradually we become more aware of the seeing that I'm using and the hearing and the smelling and the tasting and the touching. And that gradually shifts to awareness of the indriyas. And those are clearly in the level of savichara. Okay,
Yes.
does that help? Is that okay, Ma?
Yeah. Thank you. Because you were on a beautiful flow and I don't want to get that missed.
Rosalind said she thought she heard a conure. Is he a conure?
Yes.
He's a conure, yes.
He's a green cheek conure.
He's a green-cheeked conure.
He's
But he's the number one green-cheeked conure. Aren't you, Cocoa Birdie? I help him feel good about himself. You are the number one birdie of all the birdies in the whole birdie kingdom. Yes, you. You are the one. So he lives in a room, just a couple rooms away. And so sometimes he chirps and we hear him. So yes, you heard him. I think you're a bird person, if I remember correctly. So I'll give you back to Rojo.
Roseanne also put something nice in the as a common question.
So the object of meditation in this case is the object itself, but the ability to is not the object itself, but the ability. It's one example. It's one example, Roseanne, of the way in which this simple framework of Savitarka, Savichara, Sananda, Sasmita operates. That's what I was trying to say before. Patanjali doesn't go into great descriptions of these. We are stuck with the fact that we have to talk about them like we are right now to help have some understanding. Remember, yoga is traditionally oral tradition. And so you hang out and you talk about this stuff, and you do abhyasa and you do sadhana. You practice, practice, practice. And so the conversation we're having now is how to talk about the practical aspect of this, which is what you're touching. So the object of meditation in this case is not the object itself. I'll go back to the pen, but the ability to experience the object. If you allow yourself to see this, Roseanne, you can see it's a natural process. I am aware through my cognitive sense of seeing. I am seeing the pen. There's the pen, there's the pen, there's the pen. Well, it's an object. We are accustomed to thinking that objects are material and made of stuff, so I can hold it in my hand. This is an object. But the seeing that I'm doing is also, sounds odd, but it too is a form of object. So I can be aware of the pen, and gradually, by being aware of the pen, I can gradually be aware that I'm doing that by virtue of the indriya of seeing. And gradually I become aware of seeing, and the pen falls away. I hope this is making sense. It sounds odd, but the pen falls away and I'm aware of seeing. Think how sometimes when you're at home and you don't have anything to do and your mind is feeling a little bit restless. So I'm sitting here working on something. Matri's sitting there in the computer working on editing videos or something like that. And one of us comes to the other and says, "What are you doing?" "Well, I don't know. I'm sitting here working too hard." And that one says, "You want to take a break?" "Sure, let's take a break." "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. I just want to do something. I just want to get out of here." "Well, we could take a walk, or we could go to a movie, or we could go have lunch." We've all had many, many conversations like that with a friend. And what we're really saying in that moment is, I'm aware of my indriyas. I want to taste something. I want to see something. I want to hear something. I want to use my karmendriyas to do something. And so we are aware of our indriyas. And so in some sense, we're all already doing this stuff that we're talking about here in life. It's just that we've never seen it this way. What we're doing as the yogis is we're gradually learning to be that the objects of the world out there, that attachment is not just attachment to pens. I'm not just attached to pens or bad habits of cigarettes or alcohol or chocolate addiction. It's not just the objects themselves, but we have attachment towards the indriyas themselves. So it's not just that I like looking at pens, and it's not just that I like eating chocolate, or it's not just that I like Coco Birdie. I look at her. Look at Rojo over here. Rojo likes little animals. I mean, it's in her nature. So whether she seeks out the bird or one of the cats, it doesn't matter. She's just seeking out the indriyas, the senses. And we're all doing this all of the time. And so when we're sitting for meditation, or we're leaning back in our chair on the couch and we're daydreaming, we're just having a nice little leisurely contemplation, we're aware of the object going through the train of the mind, and gradually we become aware that what I'm really wanting to do is engage objects in my mind, in my fantasy, or out in the world with the use of my indriyas. And so it's becoming subtler. I'm moving from the world of vitarkas subtler to the world of vichara. And in this case, I'm talking about the indriyas, the cognitive senses, or the karmendriyas. I want to move, where Ma says, come on, Swamiji, let's go take a walk. I need to get up and move. I'm sitting here too much. And I'm tired of this stupid computer.
Mm.
You know, and I want to get out and move. It's the karmendriya of motion. So, okay, all right, let's go do that. And so we are just gradually becoming aware that constantly going on in this process here is the indriyas coming out through the body and the brain and connecting with objects in the world out here. And this is what we're doing internally with meditation and contemplation as well. So we move from the objects like pens back to the indriyas, which are subtler than the objects called pens. And then we gradually discover manas, which is that aspect of mind which employed the indriyas to find the pen or the chocolate or whatever it is that I'm doing. And gradually we come back and we find the asmita itself. So there is a basic simplicity to this process that we're talking about here. Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. It makes sense, says Roz. Good. That's what we're hoping for. It makes sense. And Roseanne, we have Roslyn and Roseanne, and they're worlds apart. I think Roz is still in Pennsylvania, somewhere around there, or New York. I think Pennsylvania, and Roseanne is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Now I'm echoing suddenly. I'll put in my earphones. Weird.
Okay. All right.
I was looking for that picture you have with the lenses. Like there's pure consciousness and it moves through all those lenses. And it's a very nice graphic, I think, to see that.
Those little telescopes?
But yeah, telescopes.
Yeah, well, we went through that in the first section.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I think it's withdrawal of the senses, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be.
So here, just listen to this little metaphor.
Yes.
Imagine you're driving your car in a rural area. It's peaceful and quiet. You approach a city. There's an ever-increasing activity with more and more people. In the heart of the city, it is thriving with sights and sound, people and objects of this or that kind. When you pass through the center of the city, the process reverses as the activity seems to gradually recede behind you as you move through the city. On your journey down the highway towards your destination, you approach cities, experience them, and then drive through them. Okay? The inner journey is like that too. As you approach a level of inner activity, experience it, and then move through to the next. The goal is realization, direct experience of the absolute reality, the objectless center of consciousness, whose nature is peace, happiness, and bliss, though truly indescribable. On that inward journey, few are able to go directly to that realization and must move into experience and then transcend the levels of the inner reality or mind that are along the way. This is the process being described in this sutra. That's what it's about. And so it's profoundly deep, these levels. It's profoundly deep, and at the same time, there is a sort of naked simplicity to it. And that's why I'm wanting you to see both. And then hang out with it and look internally. Inika says, okay.
Okay.
Okay. 17-18 describe process of samadhi, higher tula. Thus, the whole process of yoga is summarized in the first 18 sutras. Earlier, we said the whole process of yoga is summarized in the first 4 sutras. There are several ways in which you can make a comment like this. This is just another one of those ways. because we realize, okay, the first 4 says something, but then we get abhyasa and vairagya, practice and non-attachment. We get the introduction of klishta and aklishta, colored and uncolored thought patterns. And now we see that all of these obstacles occur in 4 levels: savitarka, savichara, sananda, and sasmita. Here, I've got a pen in here. Yoga Sutras has a beautiful simplicity to it, including these 4 sutras. Attention can absorb in gross objects or subtle objects, like clicking on a ballpoint pen. I don't have one of those here with me in front of me, but we all know ballpoint pen. When you where I lost my place here. Like clicking on a ballpoint pen, one can come outward and the little pen comes outward, like the little container of ink. When attention is outward, the subtler levels are still there, underneath or interior, doing their work to provide consciousness itself with the experience of the gross. With another click, the pen part retracts back into the body of the pen. When attention retracts from the gross, there is no gross experience. Then the subtle is experienced. When attention retracts again, think of your pen coming in further, that subtle experience falls away. Then there is the experience of joy or bliss, as none of the activity, distractions, attractions, or aversions are experienced. Yet there is still an I-ness doing something called experiencing. There is an experiencer experiencing an other, an object. With one more click of the pen, attention retracts past even that bliss, so that all there is the I-ness itself. Consciousness is still operating through that individuation, but that's another story. Beautifully simple, not scholarly, but practical. Oral tradition says that the study of Yoga Sutras is oral, not textual. The simplicity of the outline of the Yoga Sutras necessitates elucidation, talking about it, whether in written or preferably oral form. Preferably, we get to have conversations about it. And so when you have a friend in satsang who is also doing this, and you get together to have a cup of tea and you hang out and the conversation comes up, you're talking about meditation and these levels of consciousness, that satsang is very, very useful. You're living the oral aspect of the tradition and of the ancient yogic way. For some, this brevity in the Yoga Sutras is a sign of being incomplete. For others, it is a sign of being succinct. For the latter, the Yoga Sutras is a breath of fresh air in the midst of tomes of debate. An example comes to mind of this, and I say this respectfully, not as a negative. In the early 1970s, Pandit Usharbhad Arya, who years later became Swami Veda, started giving a talk series on the Yoga Sutras. And he got a cassette tape recorder and he recorded these. And they ended up with over 100 sessions of discussion on Yoga Sutras. And then they ended up making cassettes. So it's over 100 hours. Now I'm mentioning this story just because we are all stuck with this potential problem. When you take those 100 audio cassette programs and somebody says, I'm going to sit down and listen to all of these. This is why this conversation that you and I are having right now is live, and it will stay on the Facebook group, and some people will look at for a little while. I may archive some of these and put them on the YouTube channel, but the reason I have not done more of that is because we can accidentally create the appearance that this is so very, very complicated. And so you think, well, I'm going to go through Pandit Ari is 100 plus hours of talks on the Yoga Sutras. And when we try it, I tried it one time 30 years ago. I tried listening to some of that stuff, and it just got more and more confusing. It's just too big. He ended up with a total for his life of something on order of at least 3, maybe 4,000 hours of recorded audios. And there's a phenomenon called attachment, of clinging to the archives. And clinging to the archives can end up making this stuff very, very complicated. Here's another example. I'm just going to use it right here because it's sitting in front of me. Here is a Yoga Sutras book. Fine book. If you haven't looked at it, if you want it as a reference, it's the Yoga Philosophy of Patanjali by Swami Hariharananda Aranya. Swami Hariharananda Aranya. Very, very good. But if you sit down and you say, well, I'm going to read this and understand it. Now, this is just me talking in a friendly way to you. It will drive you crazy because it's nearly 500. I'm counting the page numbers. I'm on page 467, and there's more behind that. And so, you know, it's good to have reference and all like that, but we have to deal with finding a way to hold the simplicity of the framework and by Mitesh, the simplicity of the framework and recognizing that it goes very, very deep. And if we recognize that, then we won't let it drive us crazy. Okay? The other kind of samadhi is asamprajnata and has no object in which his attention is formed.
Swamiji, you know you're only sharing your face, right? Not that it matters, but if you want to show the text.
Well, what I'm showing here is that only the text is being transmitted.
Okay, maybe you already changed it. Okay.
That's what I'm showing.
I'm just looking at there. Okay, yeah, the live one. So it just takes a few minutes, seconds for it to change.
Yeah. The other samadhi is asamprajnata and has no object. And the words in here, cessation, the stopping, the receding. One of my favorite words is receding rather than stopping, because stopping sounds like blocking. But when attention has receded through all of those levels of object, from gross to subtle through ananda and even beyond I-ness, when it all recedes inward, this is where you have you come beyond. Recede back into the field from which they arose, which is the field of karmashaya, and that field of karmashaya is discussed in chapter 2. So once again, these sutras build one upon the other and upon the other and upon the other. And then eventually what we have, as I think most of you know, is kaivalya, absolute liberation of purusha, which no longer has any entanglement at all with any of these evolutive prakriti, with any of these levels of activity. The 4 stages of concentration derived in the previous sutra were all concentration with object, which is called samprajnata. In the current sutra, concentration without any object is being described. Now, there's an important principle here for all of us to keep in mind. As we advance through our meditation, we are headed towards objectless meditation. And remember that Patanjali describes yoga as yogas chitta vritti nirodha tadadrastu svarupevasanam. The 3rd sutra says, then the seer rests in its true nature. Note the common language terminology is self-realization. And it's the realization of the Atman, the Purusha, the self standing alone. And when it is standing alone, you allow your intelligence, your buddhi, to hear this. That when it is standing alone, it is not engaged in any object whatsoever. I'm mentioning that at this moment to make this point. remember that there's a temptation in our mind, our normal functioning mind, that wants to say, well, what object should I meditate on? Or what mantra should I use? And we use an object of meditation, we use a mantra as an instrument to lead us to the formless. That's where we're headed. We're headed toward objectless meditation so that we can have self-realization, where the Purusha or the Atman is actually literally standing alone. And that's where the state, so to speak, of the so-called enlightenment occurs, is where the self is standing alone. I hope that's making sense. Let me see here. Any comments? Yeah, only text, and I can see the text. Okay, that was old stuff. Samskaras are the deep impressions that are the driving force behind karma or actions. In objectless samadhi, all of the samskaras are in their latent form, although you are fully conscious. Now note here that carefully this sentence. In objectless samadhi, all of the samskaras are in their latent form, although you are fully conscious. From time to time, we have in our journeys together through these texts talking about this stuff, we have encountered the question of the difference between the word samadhi and the word turiya, the fourth state. Okay, and I'm going to turn this back on like this just for a moment. And so there is the samskaras. This is the turiya. This is totally pure consciousness, completely standing alone. Here, what we're talking about in this section is that the samskaras are in their latent form. Is this making some sense? It's a very subtle point, but if you can get it, it's very useful to remember. In objectless samadhi, all of the samskaras are in their latent form, although you are fully consciousness. This means they are not active in the dreaming, unconscious levels of mind, nor in the active, conscious level of mind. By reflecting on the nature of objectless samadhi, it is somewhat easy to see that the foundation of practice and non-attachment is so important in relation to uncoloring those deep impressions. So we're doing practice of having the mind be steady and stable. We're cultivating non-attachment to anything. And gradually, we are able to experience objectless samadhi, where the mind is there, the samskaras are still there, but they're in latent form. I have not yet transcended them. That's not a complaint, because Prajnata Samadhi is an extremely deep experience. Wonderful thing to do, but I'm just pausing here to make sure, get some idea of the difference between samadhi and turiya. They're in the same neighborhood. And we'll run into this many times. If this is making sense to you, it's probably because you've gone through it many times. If not, don't worry about it. You'll run into it again. There's a paradox in the practice leading to objectless concentration. Letting go of all the impressions, even the intentionality is surrendered. However, to do that, there first needs to be willpower to do the letting go of the other deep impressions. So we use intentionality to do the letting go, called vairagya or non-attachment. But eventually we let go of even the intentionality. We eventually transcend willpower. I hope that's making some sort of sense. Then seemingly in a moment, the letting go can come. And I think we've all experienced moments of that in our meditation practices, where you're working, trying. It's body, breath, and mind, and body, breath, and mind, and mantra, and body, breath, and mind, and mantra. And then for whatever reason, all of a sudden you have a moment or a minute or something like that, where you just internally you just completely let go of everything. Maybe it's because you're just bored with doing all that work, and you just let it all go. And you have a few minutes of this incredible stillness. That's the principle. Although the objectless samadhi is a deep state, this gentle balance of intentionality and letting go. See there, the idea of balance, balancing intentionality. Swami Rama says, I can do it, I will do it, I'm going to do it, I have to do it, and I'm going to do it, or something like that. That's the intentionality. But at the same time, what are you saying that I'm going to do? I'm going to let go, I'm going to let go, I'm going to let go. Well, when you finally let go into deep meditation, you have to let go of the intentionality. You have to let go of the willpower. So the willpower carries you to it. And then, as I've heard it said, you jump off the cliff, not to suicide, but you jump off the cliff into pure consciousness. Then when the time comes to do so at the deeper level, it is a familiar thing to do. We become familiar with this process of transcending or letting go. And we can do it right in the simplest, most beginning level of meditation. We just keep playing with it. It is important to understand that the objectness being addressed here is far deeper than simply quieting the noisy conscious mind, as in beginning meditation. Allowing that noisy mind to gradually still itself is an important step. However, it is only a stepping stone to opening the veil to the unconscious. Then the many impressions that are normally not seen are allowed to come forward, along with the awareness of the sensing and thinking instruments, the subtle energies and the subtle building blocks of mind and matter. All of these, not only the surface level thoughts, are the subject of objectlessness. Everything has fallen away. And so this is the end of this little journey through these two sutras and these levels. But remember, please, there's only 4 levels here. So I would ask you, please don't let yourself get overwhelmed with this. Just remember the English. It's gross, subtle, bliss, and I-ness. So there's somebody who is experiencing the subtle awareness. There's somebody experiencing the gross. And I'm simply receding inward through them. So I'm inviting you, please, if this stuff sounds complicated, hold the simplicity of it. Yes, Rob, that's one of the ways of saying it. Samadhi is a state of mind and Turiya is a state of consciousness which is beyond the mind. That's a way to say it that makes the mind happy. So our minds can sort of nod at one another and say, okay, Rob hit the nail on the head. There's the simplicity. And our minds are happy. It's okay, I know Samadhi is a state of mind and Turiya is a state of consciousness, which is beyond mind. And it's a very accurate statement. And you probably have borrowed that from Swami Rama because he has said virtually that sentence many, many times. Good, yes. Leads to absorption, yes. But the absorption, then we transcend the absorption. Remember, I become absorbed in the awareness of my pan, so now I'm in samadhi on pan. But why am I wanting to do samadhi on pan? So I can have the insight that I am not my pan, and then I can let it go and surrender it, and then that I get to be past the avidya. Okay, let me put this over here. And there's Matri and I in that thing, okay? Any thoughts or comments or question? Now I put us on there. Now R2 smile, but I have to get my head down here so that we look
I
even.
can sit up straight.
You can sit up straight. Okay, so there we are. That was our little journey through the levels.
Very nice, Swamiji.
And to be continued. Now,
Yes.
we know when we're going through these Yoga Sutras, the way that we are doing it in this kind of way, we're trying to touch on the highlights of what a section is about. Remember that we have this, I'll put this here briefly. I'm going to put this up here just briefly, just as a reminder. Remember, we've created this list of 39 sections, okay? And so, good idea to print that out and keep track of it yourself and so jog your memory of which ones you have a basic working knowledge of, a working understanding of, and which ones you need to take a deeper look at. But what we're trying to do in these reviews is just sort of bounce along the highlights in there in a good and useful way, so that you can be doing this stuff and see the simple, practical aspect of it. That's what our attempt to do is. And so,
Yeah.
okay, okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
To be continued. And when's the next? I guess
See you
Wednesday.
in 55
Huh?
minutes. The next one is Wednesday.
Yeah, the next Yoga Sutras is Wednesday. We'll go into the next section, which is Sutras 19 and 20, I think. Anyway, to be continued. And I'm going to go take a walk, and then we're going to come back, and I want to go through modern and traditional yoga. I have been resistant of going through this article because it can be irritating, frankly. So, but I said, okay, it's time to do it. I want to go through this and at least have an effort to do that. So, bye all, bye Roz, bye Ro.
Bye, everyone. Or Thursday for the people who live in Australia.
Yeah, Thursday.
Next one is Thursday.
Thursday in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty.
Well, thanks for having me, Samaji.
Thanks for joining in, Ma.
It's a joy.
Yeah, okay, bye all.
Bye, everyone. Dooey dooey.
Dooey dooey.
Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat.